Great. Thank you so much, Joanna, and thanks for all your help getting everything set up. We really appreciate it. So I just want to take a moment and welcome everyone, and thank you all for taking the time for being with us today. And as Joanna mentioned, my name is Dara Bloom. I'm an assistant professor and local foods extension specialist in the Department of Youth, Family, and Community Sciences here at NC State. And we have a really great webinar planned for you guys today, so I hope you enjoy it. Before we start, I want to just take a moment to thank our sponsors. Support for this webinar is coming through two sources, through the CEF's NC Growing Together project and Southern Fare. We just want to thank both of these funders for their support. So just to let you know what we have planned for you today, I'm going to start with an introduction and just give sort of a broad overview about food pantries and food insecurity a little more broadly. Then we'll turn it over to Emily Fulmer, who's the Growing Outreach Coordinator at ampleharvest.org, and then to Jenny Bell and Katie Phillips, who work with Farmer Food Share, and we'll talk about their donation station program. We'll have more time for questions from the chat bar, and then at the end we'll close the webinar sharing contact information for the speakers and linking you to an evaluation survey. So just to begin, I wanted to start with this question of who we're actually talking about when we talk about food pantries. And I mean both sort of what are the food pantries themselves as organizations, and then who also are their clients, who are the people that they are serving. So this is a very rough schematic, but basically you'll see at the top the Feeding America National Network of Food Banks. So that's the largest network of food banks in the country. Not all food banks or all food pantries are connected to the network, but a lot of them are. And then within North Carolina, we have 7 food banks that operate regionally at the state level, and they are sort of connected through this North Carolina Association of Feeding America Food Banks. And then they also can be connected to other food banks in other regions through this network of the Feeding America Food Banks. So food banks, I think that sometimes people can get confused between what a food bank is versus a food pantry. And food banks tend to be quite larger. They actually are sort of very large warehouses. A lot of them have refrigerated trucks. They have distribution systems set up. And they receive pretty large donations from food retailers, large farms, things like that. And then they're the ones who are responsible for distributing that food out to their agencies within at the local level. So those tend to be food pantries, soup kitchens, might be a homeless shelter. And so those food pantries are actually the ones who are operating at the local level, sort of within the community. So Feeding America has done quite a bit of research internally within its network, something called the Hunger Study, where they did a lot of surveys, again, within their network. So I just wanted to start by sharing some of the data that they've collected about their food pantries that they work with and then the constituents that they serve. So this is just a slide from Feeding America. You can see across the top it says Feeding America is a nationwide network of 200 member food banks. So again, that's nationally. And then those food banks serve 46,000 agencies. So again, those would be the soup kitchens, food pantries. And something I really wanted to highlight is over on the right here, that 51% of those agencies rely entirely on volunteers, and about 62% are faith-based organizations. So, you're going to hear some speakers talk about making connections with food pantries later on in the webinar. And so I wanted to highlight that to just sort of remind us that food pantries aren't like normal businesses. They are very reliant on volunteers, and they're usually not open sort of, the same way business would be every day of the week. So a lot of them will be open maybe once a week, once a month even, maybe twice a month. They don't necessarily have access to the internet. They don't necessarily have very good storage for fresh produce. You might try to call them and not hear back for a while, again, because they're just not open necessarily that often. So I think those are important things to keep in mind as we're talking about trying to build relationships and connections with these organizations. That you might, in terms of coordinating deliveries of produce, you might want to really have an idea of what the schedule is of the pantries that are in your community. So going back to this sort of schematic, these 46,000 agencies that Feeding America works with operate about 58,000 food programs. 67% of those are providing groceries. Again, that would be the food pantries. 33% are actually serving meals. And altogether, that's about 46.5 million people each year, or 1 in 7 people in the United States who are being fed through this network. So if you think about that number, 1 in 7, and just think about the people that you see on your way to work, the people you see over the course of a day, and how many people that is, and 1 in 7, it's actually feels like quite a bit. So this is again from the Feeding America website, and they're from this report. Feeding America has seen a demand for food assistance skyrocket in recent years, with a 46% increase in client demand from 2006 to 2010. So that's obviously across the recession, a huge rise in demand. And we've done some interviews with food pantries in Harnett County and Lee County, and they say that the food pantry directors said that they have also seen demand continue to rise within the past few years too. And I just want to highlight that, in terms of that 46.5 million number that Feeding America serves nationally, that's 5.4 million individuals each week, and that 39% of those client households have a child under the age of 18, and 1 in 3 of those households has a senior household member who is 60 years or older. So, we're talking about some of our most vulnerable populations. So when we talk about food insecurity, I wanted to explain too, so the USDA food security definition is access by all people at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. So, it's a little bit different. We used to, I think all of the research and the publicity used to be more around hunger, but the idea of food insecurity is that it's not necessarily that people don't have food, it's just that it might sort of vary, so for example, throughout the month. So maybe towards the end of the month, if they're waiting for the next paycheck, they might have gaps that they have to fill in. Or they might have to make some trade-offs between their basic needs and purchasing healthy food. So this slide shows, again, this is from Feeding America's The Hunger Study, in their survey, sort of what type of trade-offs they found that people were making. So again, 55% of households reported using 3 or more coping strategies in the past year. Almost 80% reported that they had to purchase inexpensive, unhealthy food. So I think we all sort of realize that there's a connection between some of the health problems that we see that are related to diet and the problems that are associated with poverty, and this sort of illustrates that. 53% relied on their social networks, friends and family. 40% watered down food or drinks. 35% sold personal property or pawned it. And 23% grew food in a garden, which is actually nice to see. I hope they were relying on extension when they did that. So this is, again, some of Feeding America's data. This is something called Map the Meal Gap. And it's quite a bit of USDA data that Feeding America has drawn together. And for some of you might be familiar with the USDA Food Environment Atlas. So this works pretty similarly. It's an interactive map that you can go to and look at, zoom in by state. The difference is that the USDA Food Environment Atlas has a lot of different types of data. So it has food insecurity, but then also will have data such as the transportation, or a number of households with vehicles, how many super centers are in an area. And this is more focused on food insecurity. And then you can see those orange dots are the 7 food banks that we have across the state. So this is overall food insecurity rates on this map. You can see on the bottom the overall food insecurity rate for North Carolina is 18.6%. And then if we, what you can do, this is obviously a static version, but if you go to the website, if you hover over one of the counties, you can get county-specific data. So this is for Edgecombe County, and you can see we went from that 18.6 overall for North Carolina up to 25.7% for Edgecombe County. And you can see that the food insecurity overall is a little bit more concentrated up in that northeast corner. We can also look at child food insecurity rates, and it's interesting to see that some of that actually shifts a little bit more out towards the western region, and that we go from, again, the overall food insecurity rate of 18.6% up to 26.7%. And again, we can just hover over the county. So here's Wilkes County, for example, and now we've jumped up to 31% for the child food insecurity rate. So looking at those numbers, what that translates to is that 1 in 4 children in North Carolina are food insecure. And again, that's actually using that overall number of the 26%. And in some of those counties, it's going to be actually a little bit higher. You might even think of 1 in 3. So, again, if you path of school on your way to work, you might think about the kids playing in the playground. 1 in 4, 1 in 3 children may be facing food insecurity. And so these are some data that are more related to North Carolina. This is from the North Carolina Association of Feeding America Food Banks. So between 2010 and 2014, North Carolina regularly ranked among the top 10 states with the highest percentage of citizens experiencing food shortages. North Carolina has several cities with some of the highest levels of food insecurity in the whole country. That includes Asheville, Greensboro, High Point, and Winston-Salem. 81% of North Carolina households receiving food assistance don't know where their next meal is coming from. 36% of food pantries in North Carolina have had to turn people away for lack of food to give them, which I think is a really striking number. And an estimated 22% of client households have a member who has served in the military, and 6% have a member who is currently serving in the military. So again, on that website, the NC Feeding America Association, you can find a food bank for your region. These are all the food banks that we have, the 7 food banks that we have regionally. And so if you're trying to find a food pantry in your community, like I mentioned, a lot of them don't have websites. So the food bank is probably the best way to find them. You can always give your food bank a call and get a list of them. You can also go to the website. So this is the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina. And where that red arrow is, if you hit on if you click that Find Help button, it will take you to this page, and you can put in your zip code. You can see here I put in my zip code. I live in Durham, and this is just a screenshot. So this is actually there was quite a long list of pantries, but that can really be the best way to find them. And you can see here that what their hours are and figure that out. So. We have some more information about food access and food insecurity on the local food portal under the Food Access tab, which is under the Strong Communities, and there's the website. And with that, I want to turn this over to Emily Fulmer, who is the Grower Outreach Coordinator for ampleharvest.org. She brings to the table many years of community and faith-based organizing, as well as volunteer recruitment and engagement experience. She lives in Memphis, Tennessee, and is an active volunteer with Grow Memphis, the region's only grassroots urban gardening and food justice organization. She grows vegetables in her front and backyards and has recently welcomed a small flock of buff Orpington hens to her young family. So we will have some time for questions right after Emily's presentation. So if you have any questions as she's going along, please just type them into the chat box, and we will have some time to present those to her at the end. So Emily, if you could please turn on your microphone, and I will pass the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Dara. Hello, everyone. As Dara said, my name is Emily Fulmer. I'm the Grower Outreach Coordinator at ampleharvest.org. I want to thank Dara and Joanna for inviting me to share with you all today about ampleharvest.org, and I want to thank the organizations and sponsors that made this possible. This is such an important topic and very dear to my heart, so I appreciate the opportunity. ampleharvest.org is a nationwide nonprofit organization. We operate in the cloud. We're using technology to connect the millions of gardeners across America that are growing food with their local food pantries so that excess produce can be shared with those in need. In 2009, our founder and executive director, Gary Oppenheimer, found a problem that needed a solution. Gary's an extension master gardener in New Jersey, and while working with a group of volunteers in a community garden, he noticed that there was an abundance of food left in the garden, and he wanted to donate it to a food pantry rather than just let it go to waste or throwing it in the compost pile. A quick Google search told him that the closest food pantry was 25 miles away. Well, that wasn't true. There was one just a few miles from the garden, but it didn't have a website or any web presence. Figuring that other gardeners might have the same trouble, Gary launched ampleharvest.org so that gardeners could easily find a nearby food pantry when they had food to share. We like to think of ampleharvest.org as like a Google search engine, but just for food pantries. You can go to our site, type in your location, and find pantries near you, see their hours, their location, and contact information. And for many food pantries, their listing on ampleharvest.org is the only web presence they have because purchasing and maintaining their own website is just not feasible. We provide this service to food pantries free of charge, and our goal is to have all 50,000 or so food pantries registered on our site so that every gardener in America can find them when they have food to donate. A report from the National Gardening Association reveals that there are approximately 42 million Americans growing fruits and vegetables in home or community gardens, and that number does not include small-scale or large commercial farmers or family farmers. But growers of all kinds grow more than they can eat, preserve, sell, or share with friends and family. And we believe that no food should be left behind, especially when there are so many Americans struggling to find their next meal, and many are struggling to fight off diet-related illnesses like obesity and diabetes. And we want to help remove any barriers that might prevent excess food from being shared with those that need it most. Since we started in 2009, more than 7,000 food pantries have registered on our site. All of them are ready and able, sometimes desperate, to receive fresh donations. You can see them on this map on the right-hand side. Each red pin represents one pantry. We still have some work to do in some of the more rural areas in the center of the country, but for the most part, anywhere you are, you should be able to find a food pantry within a short drive. Even though it's now easy, thanks to our site and others, for most Americans to find a food pantry, there are some other perceived barriers that keep people from donating food. So for example, many people think that only non-perishable food items can be donated to a food pantry. This is not true, and we're trying to change this perception. Part of the problem is that food drives, food drives are constantly repeating the phrase, non-perishable food items. Please bring your non-perishable food items to the food drive today. But our solution is simple. When a food pantry registers on our site, they can list the days and times that they're accepting donations. So if the food is going to be distributed to clients on Tuesday, say at 9 a.m., pantries can tell gardeners on our site to drop off the fresh food donations at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. That way the food does not need to be refrigerated at all. It can be distributed within an hour of being donated. So a gardener can harvest the food that morning and deliver it just before it's given away, making the food sometimes even fresher than what we could even buy at a grocery store. This model bypasses this food bank to food pantry distribution. The reason why food pantries don't often have a lot of fresh produce is because donations to the food bank stay in the warehouse for a while and then are either delivered monthly, bi-monthly to the food pantries, or food pantries go once a month to the warehouse and choose the food that they want to take. So there's just too much time in the process for fresh food to be included in those deliveries or those pickups. This eliminates that whole step so that the food can be shared and then distributed immediately, so there's no need for refrigeration. Another perceived barrier, gardeners often ask us if it's safe to donate food from their farm or their garden. They worry that someone might get sick and that they may get sued. This is not a problem when people use ampleharvest.org. The Bill Emerson Food Donation Act protects anyone who donates fresh food to a nonprofit food distribution agency. So we make sure that every food bank, food pantry, or soup kitchen that registers on our site is a nonprofit organization, and the food is given away free of charge. So I tell gardeners, as long as the food is of a high enough quality that they themselves would eat it, then it's considered a good faith donation, and they don't have to worry about that. Another challenge that we find is that gardeners sometimes think it's not worth donating small amounts of food. We know that's not true. I'm a home gardener myself. I tell people I used to feel silly just taking a handful of peppers to the food pantry near my house until I realized how much 3 large, fresh, local, in my case, organically grown peppers would cost at the grocery store, and what a gift it truly was for a mom or dad who might not have enough money to buy them for their family. And that made me want to share, even if I felt like it was not enough. So if you're a home or community gardener, an extension master gardener, extension agent, farmer, you can and should be donating and spreading the word to your gardening friends and colleagues. I'm going to briefly walk you through how our site works. So if you have a garden or a farm and you have extra food, before you harvest, head over to ampleharvest.org and click on Find a Pantry. big button right on the home page. And there you'll see a search box, which you can see an example here on the slide. You can type in your city, you can type in your state, just your zip code, or you can type in the exact address of your farm or your community garden or your home. And you can select a search area radius. And as you can see here, I've done a search for food pantries within a 50-mile radius of Greensboro, North Carolina. Just to the left of the map are the results. It's a list of food pantries. And if I could scroll down, if this was the actual site, you would see there's about 30 pantries on that list. If you click on more information and directions, you'll see that pantry's info. Before I go to the next slide, I want to point out one thing on this page. On the top left, you see where there's a black and white QR code. If you're on a site and you click there, it will pull up a printable tax receipt for your food donation. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted to point that out while we're here. So I clicked on the very first pantry, the Positive Direction for Youth and Families Incorporated. And this slide here, this information is directly from that pantry's listing. So you have the address, contact person, phone, email, website, and days and times they accept donations. This pantry listed that they would like for donors to call before showing up with donations. Many of the pantries on our site also list other items that they need or more information about the clients that they serve. If they serve a lot of families with children, they may also list, we need diapers. Every pantry's result page, like this one, automatically includes the website for the State Cooperative Extension Office, which you can see there just above the photo of the food. Most of the people who use our site are gardeners or farmers, and we put that there as a resource for any growing questions they may have. We're telling people all the time to contact their extension offices to seek help from a master gardener or extension agent in their community, because it's such a great resource. And we get a lot of questions from gardeners, and we are not experts. So if you're ready to donate, you can call this food pantries, coordinate your donation. They'll probably have you bring it just before the pantry opens for clients so that the food can be distributed immediately and won't need to be refrigerated. So for the rest of the growing season, you could continue to donate to this pantry or go back and find a new one next time. So when you harvest your produce, you take stock of what you're donating. You can download the tax receipt form that I pointed out earlier, determine how much you've donated. You can calculate the value of the food and use it as a tax write-off. And we always say, of course, you should run all of this by your tax professional if you have one, because we are also not experts on tax code. So our goal is to encourage, enable, and engage growers of all stripes to share extra food so that the hungry in their community can make those healthy choices, and so that no food is wasted unnecessarily. But the work doesn't stop when harvest time is over. There are many other opportunities to help in your community. For one, you can help get a food pantry registered on ampleharvest.org. If you are working in a community garden, if you're a community garden manager, or you're involved with the Extension's teaching garden, you may already be donating food to a food pantry, which is awesome. It would be a tremendous help if you could make sure that that food pantry is registered on ampleharvest.org so that other gardeners and farmers can find them as well. So you can go back to the Find a Pantry page. You can do a quick search. If they're not registered on our site, you can go to ampleharvest.org/local and download a flyer that you can take to the pantry managers and tell them it's totally free for them to sign up on ampleharvest.org. It will always be free, and it will help them connect with more gardeners and get more food donations for their clients. Another thing you could do, you can recruit other gardeners to donate. So even if it's not growing season right now, you can help spread the word to other gardeners while they're planning their spring gardens. For extension agents who work with master gardeners, an easy way to help spread the word would be possibly with the Extension Office's horticultural hotline or your Ask an Expert program. So when gardeners call or email about growing fruits or vegetables, you can let them know that if they have extra, they can donate it to a food pantry, and they can easily find one at ampleharvest.org. Another idea, if you're involved with youth in agricultural or 4-H programs, there's some really great ideas to get kids involved in food donation projects using ampleharvest.org. One of my favorite campaigns that we do is the Centerpieces for Food Pantries. For Thanksgiving or Mother's Day or any other holiday where flowers are typically given or displayed on a table, we encourage people to instead create a centerpiece made with whole fruits and vegetables, and then when you're done enjoying it, the entire thing can be donated to a food pantry. I could see this becoming like a competitive thing with the 4-H clubs or fairs. And you can see a beautiful example of what I'm talking about here on the slide. This is a photo shared with us via Instagram, all fresh foods from a farmer's market, actually, not from a gardener. She went and bought the food and made the centerpiece. Another way you can help during the off-season is you can help us spread the word. So we're trying to reach all 42 million gardeners across America. We could really use your help spreading the word. So on your Facebook page or your extension office's website or blog, and throughout your network of extension master gardeners, farmers, or agents. We're just a small nonprofit with a big mission, so anything you can do to help spread the word about sharing fresh foods with those that need it would be really appreciated. Email, a tweet, Facebook post, it goes a long way. So we also want to stay in touch with you. We want to connect. We want to hear from you about the food that you're growing and that you're donating. All of the photos on this slide are of food that was grown in a community garden and given away to food pantries. We'd love to see photos. You can tweet us, tag your Instagram photos with our hashtag. You can post to our Facebook wall or just plain old email at ishared@ampleharvest.org. We really love receiving emails from gardeners, and I love the pictures. I could look at pictures of harvest all day. We have a great community of people on social media, and we like to brag about our gardener friends and repost what they're sharing. So I hope you'll please stay in touch with us. There's so many opportunities to use ampleharvest.org in your community, so many ideas that we haven't even thought of yet. And so if you have any questions or if you have any ideas about how we can work together in your community, please feel free to email me directly at emily@ampleharvest.org. And that's my presentation. I'll stop here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. That was fantastic. We do have one question here from Lisa Valdivia. She says that they have a garden here in North Carolina that produces 7,000 to 10,000 pounds yearly of food. And right now they're donating that to Second Harvest, which serves 400 agencies in 18 counties. So she was wondering if you have any thoughts on whether it might be better for them to donate locally, directly to food pantries. Have you seen other examples working well on this large of a scale? She's thinking that they would have to coordinate timing with all of the individual pantries, if they didn't have refrigeration in terms of figuring out the drop-off times and dates. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. This is wonderful. I'm so glad to hear this. And if you have a good relationship already with where you're donating, keep doing it. That food bank may have refrigerated trucks or may have a more frequent distribution schedule. So if you're taking fresh food to the food bank, they may be able to get it quickly out to the pantries and they have the refrigeration necessary to do that. And so and that does happen. That is certainly not impossible to do. And so if it's working, I think it's great. But if you have a small amount, if you have a community garden that they're just wrapping up for the season and they just have a bushel or a small bag, 2 or 3 small bags, it may very well be easier to just find a pantry and take it directly to the pantry. I think the benefit of working with one particular food pantry is really the relationship building that happens. So we hear story after story of people who have been growing food, they've been wasting it, or they've been secretly dropping it off on the porches of their neighbors, probably annoying their neighbors with zucchinis, constantly. And until they heard about ampleharvest.org and did a quick search, they didn't know that a food pantry was right around the corner from their house, and they could have been donating. And so finding that pantry, talking to the pantry coordinator, and getting involved with the pantry and building that relationship, it's powerful both for the gardener and for the pantry. I've got a great relationship with the pantry that's a quarter of a mile from my house, and we've worked on establishing a community garden at the pantry. They've got bees now. I mean, it's been a wonderful relationship. So all of that to say, you know, the local level, the community sharing, the relationship building is really powerful. But if you are talking about a large quantity of food, you know, truckloads of food, a local food pantry is not likely going to be able to accept that donation at one time, and because they just couldn't give it all away. But if you can take that large quantity to a food bank that is going to distribute it, that's a great model. That works well. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. So we do have another few minutes for questions. If anyone has any other questions, you can type them into that chat box. We can ask Emily. And actually, in the meantime, I'll ask a question. I was wondering, Emily, you talk a lot about, in terms of the gardening and the smaller donations for food pantries. Does Ample Harvest, will that also work for like smaller scale farmers too? Is that something that we could be thinking about, or?
Absolutely. I think the trick will be finding the right place to donate. And as you can see, on that page, when I searched, there were lots of choices near Greensboro, North Carolina. There was over 30, I think. One pantry may only be open for 2 hours once a month, and they may only be serving about 30 to 40 families that one time that they're open. And so if they receive, a truckload of cabbage, there's just not going to be a way for them to get all that food out before it goes bad. So if you're talking about major donations, what you really need to do is call ahead. The food pantry may say, absolutely, we can get that out. We can do it right now. We can even come pick it up. Each pantry is different. They have their different restrictions. They have their different systems, and so it's in that situation, it would be good to call around until you find the best place to take the food. But it certainly can, and it does work in many places.
Great, thank you so much. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. This is your last chance. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, Emily, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if you don't mind turning off your microphone, and we will turn things over to Katie Phillips and Ginny Bell from Farmer Food Share. Oops. So Ginny Bell is the Executive Director of Farmer Food Share. She's a Chapel Hill native with a background in education, local food retail, business management, and sustainable farming. She joined Farmer Food Share as Operations Manager in January 2013. In her role, she oversaw program staff, accounting and finance, and day-to-day management for Farmer Food Share, helping to strengthen Farmer Food Share's operational effectiveness and financial sustainability. Ginny was promoted to Executive Director following the transition of Farmer Food Share's founder. Ginny is excited to work with Farmer Food Share's board, extraordinary staff, and volunteers and farmer network to continue to create systems and programs to connect people who grow food with people who need food across the state of North Carolina. And Katie Phillips is the Donation Station Coordinator for Farmer Food Share. Katie is a native of Louisiana, a region known for good food and hospitality. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and studied in Vancouver, BC to earn an MA in theology. Katie worked as an outdoor educator for several years in Asheville, North Carolina. Alongside her graduate work, she served the urban poor in the downtown east side of Vancouver, growing food in empty city lots. She also apprenticed with a master gardener. The East beckoned her back, and she returned for an internship with Anathoth Community Garden in Cedar Grove, North Carolina. Katie currently lives on the family strawberry farm in Durham, North Carolina, is an aspiring flower grower, and teaches Pilates. So Ginny and Katie, I will turn it over to you guys and ask you to turn your microphones on and take it from here.
Great. Thanks for having us. This is Ginny. I'm just going to give a quick background on Farmer Food Share before turning it over to Katie. So Dara and Emily started us off with some good background information on food insecurity and hunger in the U.S. And at Farmer Food Share, we're really focused both on food insecurity and food access, but also on farmers and agricultural production. So North Carolina is one of the nation's top agricultural producers. Despite this, we rank 5th worst in the nation for hunger. So almost 2 million North Carolinians are food insecure. Farmer Food Share was founded in response to this breakdown in the system, where we've got tremendous agricultural strength. We've got farmers that are helping to feed the rest of the country while we're struggling to feed ourselves here at home. Additionally, it's gotten more expensive to feed your family a healthy, balanced diet in the rise of readily available, cheap processed foods, shelf-stable canned foods. So we see that on top of having high rates of food insecurity, we're also seeing higher levels of obesity and diet-related health problems among children and adults. So we're seeing people who are both obese and food insecure, so a true paradox. So it's really in response to these issues that Farmer Food Share was founded. So our mission is to combat local hunger and food insecurity while raising awareness that a healthy local food system has to include every member of the community. We believe that the way forward in fighting hunger and building viable food systems is through collaboration and partnership. So Farmer Food Share is working, all of our programs focus on connecting local farmers and local bounty to people in the community who need food. And on that, I'll turn it over to Katie Phillips, who will talk about the donation station program based at farmers markets.
Great, thanks Jenny, and thanks Dara and Joanna for this invitation. We're really excited to share the donation station program with all of you, so thanks for coming. So the donation station was started in Carborough in May of 2009. Our founder, Margaret, and her daughter basically set up a small table at the Carborough Farmers Market with a box and started collecting food to bring to the IFC in Carborough. And they received so much support not only from the community but also from the farmers that it eventually turned into the model that we have today called the donation station. The donation station is a replicable model for increasing access to fresh food through a farmers market-based approach, a very simple approach actually. It's market-led and volunteer-operated. It's a community giving and gleaning table or donation station that connects food from local farmers to local food pantries or organizations. So the model is designed to support local farmers while also engaging the community and supporting those in need. So it's meant to be a win-win for everybody in the community. So as you can see from this slide here, this is kind of demonstrating what the donation station does. So we collect, farmers market shoppers donate cash at the donation station. And they also can donate fresh food at the donation station. The volunteers then will take the cash that's received and they can purchase food from the farmers throughout the farmers market that day. And then at the end of the farmers market, local farmers also have the option to donate any surplus or excess food to the donation station as well. And then at the end of the farmers market, the recipient organization then comes to collect the food. So as you will see later in the presentation, every farmers market finds their own volunteers and their own recipient organizations. So there's many benefits to having a donation station at a farmers market and in the community. Most importantly, fresh food gets to our local pantries, many of whom are actually not even, at the time that we give to these organizations, they're not receiving fresh food. Also, farmers' food waste is decreased, and the community has a very tangible opportunity to engage. We always tell farmers market managers to communicate to the community that this is a place for them to do their charitable giving. So every farmers market donation station is different and sees very different results and benefits based on their location, their size, and the kind of community and farmer support that they have. In 2014, 25 donation stations operated in 8 different counties, and all of these donation stations and all of these markets kind of took on their own unique characteristics. The market size ranged from 20 weeks with 5 vendors to 52 weeks with 50 plus vendors, and that includes midweek markets, but also Saturday markets. The donated food per market ranged from 400 pounds to 22,000 pounds annually, which you can see is a big differentiation. Cash donations and new spending, which means spending that actually wasn't occurring before the donation station, per market ranged from $400 to $6,000 annually. So as you can see, there's a big differentiation between markets, and as an example of some of our local markets that have donation stations, the Farrington Village Farmers Market, which is located north of Pittsburgh, has around 15 vendors. It's located in a small residential community and closes for the winter season. Since the beginning of 2014, the Farrington Donation Station has donated over 2,700 pounds of fresh food to its recipient organization, which is a small food pantry called Take and Eat in Chatham County. They've spent $4,200 at market since the beginning of 2014. Or no, sorry. Sorry, that's the next one. They've spent over $1,000 at the market. So you can contrast that with the Durham Farmers Market, which also has a donation station. They're located in downtown Durham. They have around 50 vendors, and it's a year-round market with a weekday market and a Saturday market. Its donation station program has donated over 6,500 pounds of fresh food to its recipient, and it's spent over $4,200 at market since the beginning of 2014. So there is a range of spending and of food collected. I always tell new markets that it really takes time for the community to know what we're about, and really for the farmers to earn our trust and know that we seek to support them too. Other benefits include increased food access initiatives such as SNAP incentives, community demonstrations, as well as deeper partnerships in the community. We have brought in some local chefs to help facilitate canning demonstrations. We've also started a series of community meals with our recipients, farmers, and community members. So the donation station has really become a springboard for other initiatives in the community. So who are the donation station partners? So partnership is really essential to what we're doing in Farmer Food Share as a whole, but also at our donation stations. Our partners include the farmers market in general. So that's the market manager, but also all of the farmers that sell at that farmers market. We also consider the recipients that are receiving the food partners. We use recipient agency and organization interchangeably. So this could be local food pantries, community kitchens, mental health organizations, or summer backpack programs. And then volunteers, as with Ample Harvest, are very important to what we're doing at Farmer Food Share. The donation station program could really not run without our volunteers. And these can be everyone from community members to civic leagues, school clubs, business groups. There's lots of different places, which I'll touch upon later, from which you can draw volunteers. So all of our partners have specific roles and responsibilities during the donation station as it's running at the farmers market. We really always want market approval, both from the farmers, but also from the farmers market itself to operate a donation station. We consider our donations owned by the market, co-owned by the market and Farmer Food Share. We provide orientations and training along with sort of a starter kit for getting started. And we also provide any marketing materials for the table itself. But we do ask the market to provide market space, any tabling supplies, and volunteers as they are able. We also ask the market to include donation station results in market communication. So that's basically any of the numbers that the volunteers collect during the farmers market, so the amount of money spent and the amount of fresh food that's collected. Our recipient agencies, the one thing that we do ask of the recipients is to pick up the donations from the farmers market and to make sure that they distribute them, the fresh food, in a manner that's appropriate for that food. So because the fresh food has obviously not a high shelf life, we want to make sure that the food gets to the people that they're serving rather quickly. But it's not, that role is not limited to that. We also have had recipients that have sent volunteers themselves to staff the donation station, and we always are looking for ways to partner deeper with them. And then our volunteers, once again, they sustain our donation station program. So they run the station on a weekly basis. They're there to open the donation station, operate the station during the farmers market, and then also close the station up and wait for the recipient to pick up the food. They're also responsible for recording the donations and reporting that back to the community and to Farmer Food Share. So we really find that reporting back to the market important, because then they can communicate that through their network, whether it's their newsletter or their annual farmers market meetings. It's important to let the farmers and the community know just the impact that the donation station is making. So finding volunteers, where do these partners come from? Finding volunteers is really dependent on your location, the size of the market, if there's a network of schools local to that area. We've pulled volunteers from the farmers market community. We always have a sign-up list at the donation station. We've also had some local high schools in Chapel Hill and Carborough that have formed some Farmer Food Share clubs, and that's been really fabulous for those markets. They have their own system of signing up volunteers and then sending them over on Saturdays. We have civic groups and church groups that we pulled volunteers from, and then a big place has been the universities and community colleges. They have service learning programs. The students need a certain number of hours, and we've been a great place for those students to serve. We've also pulled volunteers from neighborhood listservs and community centers, and also really trying to tap into the retirement community. We found that folks that are retired have more time on their hands. They're incredibly reliable and really willing to serve. Finding recipient agencies, again, this is very dependent on the size of your market and where your market is located. We have assessments or surveys that have been really helpful for some of our markets to determine just the best fit for their market. And some questions on the survey can ask what the nature of the current food program is, along with the clients that they're serving, if they have proper storage for fresh food, how they might see fresh food incorporated into their program, and again, whether it corresponds with market hours. So just making sure that if they're getting food on Saturday, wanting to make sure that not only they have good storage space, but if they're giving food on Wednesday, that's probably not the best fit. But if they're doing a distribution or cooking the food on Monday, it might be a good fit. So just assessing what the capacity of the agency is. So we've worked with church food pantries, backpack programs, community centers. The Chapel Hill Weekday Market gives to Women's and Children's Shelter in Chapel Hill. We do work with the Crisis Center in Durham. And all of these places, most of them are distributing on a smaller scale. There's typically 20 to 30 women that they're serving. And then we also, our Chapel Hill Saturday Market gives to a clubhouse for the disabled, Club Nova, which is in Carborough. So that's just an overview of our donation station program. As an extension agent, if you are interested in possibly starting a donation station at your local farmers market, we ask that you first maybe contact the farmers market and tell them a little bit more about the program. You can also begin to contact possible partners that you see would be a good fit for a program like the donation station, potential volunteer groups, and recipient agencies. And you can also go ahead and contact Farmer Food Share and talk to Jenny or I, and we'd be happy to talk to your local market about getting a donation station started. So thanks, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I think Jenny is still on the line to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much to both of you. And I wanted to start with a question that we have in the side here that I know Jenny already typed in an answer, but just so we have it recorded too. So the question was whether Farmer Food Share needs to already have a presence in a community or in a county so that a new station can be developed, or like does there need to be a Farmer Food Share paid employee in the vicinity of a new donation station is the question.
So the answer is no, there does not need to be any sort of presence already there. You know, we are based in the Triangle, but we've got donation stations operating in Greensboro and Charlotte and Cleveland County and a couple places. And it's really, if there is kind of either an enthusiastic market manager who wants to see a program like this offered, if there's a community member who really gets riled up about wanting to make food access in their community a priority, it really just takes an interested party who's willing to start the conversation to get the project started. We have lots of resources and provide training for anybody who wants to get a station started and help guide you through the technical steps and the how-tos. But really, once it's up and running, it's fairly self-contained. The market and volunteers really run the day-to-day. So we provide all sorts of startup help, but you know, our mission is to see more communities having control over their own food access and collaborating. So it's very much a community by community basis. Each farmers market finds a recipient agency in their local community, so you can have kind of that community bonding element and partnership development.
We do have another question here, which looks like it's really for all of the speakers, not just Farmer Food Share. And the question is, have you seen any efforts to produce or donate items specifically that food recipients want the most or will use, rather than only focusing on sort of extras or leftovers?
I have seen that, yeah. In many cases, the food pantries that register on ampleharvest.org, they tell us, well, we're getting a lot of vegetables that are unfamiliar to our clients. You know, there may be those weird things that you got in your CSA share, for example, that you just didn't know what to do with, and people donated that, and then, of course, the food pantry clients also don't know what to do with, I don't know, kohlrabi, for example. And so we've seen, in the cases where it's just the extra food that's donated and there's not a lot of selection about it, we've seen gardeners send in recipes with the food that they donated, or even pantry coordinators recognizing this challenge and then initiating a recipe exchange or even a cooking demonstration at the food pantry to retroactively sort of help get that donated food to be more familiar and get some more exposure for that kind of food to clients who maybe didn't really understand how to use it in the past. But we've also, yeah, we also have a strong relationship with America's Plant a Row program through the Garden Writers Association, and there's a lot of thought that goes into that. You know, if you have a relationship with a food pantry and you learn, for example, that you know, corn or squash or, you know, some of the basic things are really more popular, folks who are participating in Plant a Row will then plan their garden ahead of time to make sure that what they plant extra for the food pantry is what the food pantry will already, that the food pantry will like. And so again, it goes back to establishing that relationship, you know, finding out what the clients prefer, what they enjoy the most, that's the most popular, and planting and planning in advance to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that can happen. It's very creative ideas.
Yeah, and I can speak to that too. With the donation station, we do have some control over the purchases that we have our volunteers make. Some of our recipient agencies have actually suggested certain foods. I know that we serve a Hispanic congregation. They do a food distribution every week. And especially during the summer months, they have asked us to buy more peppers and tomatoes and different things that culturally the women cook with. And that's been fun for our volunteers to feel like they're actually contributing to the cuisine of that community. We obviously can't control the donations that are given to us by the farmers themselves at the end. But we also incorporate some recipes. Some of the recipients have approached us and asked us for recipes, so we've tried to incorporate that in the donations when the recipients pick the food up. We've also done some canning demonstrations. We've brought in April McGregor, who does some preserving demonstrations. She's worked with a few of our the kids that receive food from the backpack programs from Table and Carborough, and that's been really wonderful to just educate the community further about the food and different ways that they can use it.
This is Ginny chiming in real quick. One other resource that I wanted to share on our website, farmerfoodshare.org, we have a link to a page called Food Ambassadors, and we've got online versions of, we call them fruit and veggie fact sheets. So when you come across kohlrabi or, you know, the green that you don't know what it is, we've got a lot of resources on there for North Carolina grown produce, both like a little bit of, you know, information on the vegetable, kind of plain English nutrition, you know, why it's good for you, and some really simple suggestions for how to prepare it if it's something that needs to be baked or sauteed. So feel free to look at those. Those are available in English and Spanish on our website. And if you want any PDFs, we're happy to send them to you. They're there to help make fresh local food more accessible to people, and that certainly access is the first step, but if people don't know what to do with it, then it's certainly not successful and won't be incorporated into people's lives more often.
Great, thank you all so much. And I wanted to add, this is Derek, and I wanted to add too that I think one of the positive outcomes potentially of having relationships with food pantries for Extension can be, you know, building those relationships and then also maybe including some of our programs too with food pantry recipients. So I know that we'd piloted some FNEP classes, again, kind of down in Lee County, and there was definitely some challenges. It was hard to keep people, you know, enrolled through the whole series of classes. But for those who were able to stick with it, we saw really great outcomes, and you know, not just teaching people how to use these different types of fruits and vegetables, but also, you know, programs like FNEP also do some of the resource management, which can help people sort of not run out of money by the end of the month and help them budget a little bit better too. So that learning some of those tricks can be really helpful. So again, you can think about the food pantry clients as potentially a really good audience for some of the programs that we have. And just again, I want to thank all of our speakers and thank Joanna for setting this up. I think there was a lot of really helpful, really great information, and we're really impressed by all of the hard work that you guys do and that your organizations do. I think it's really, really great, so I hope that we can become involved with that as well. Thank you so much.